He took her to a cheap diner for their first date. What happened next shocked everyone. The rain was coming down hard that evening, blurring the glow of streetlights into pools of gold on the wet pavement. Emma sat in the passenger seat, trying to hide her disappointment behind a polite smile. It was their first date, and she'd spent hours getting ready. A soft blue dress, her grandmother's earrings, and a quiet hope that maybe, just maybe, this would be something special. But when Daniel parked in front of Charlie's diner, her heart sank. The flickering neon sign, the rusted metal awning, and the peeling paint didn't exactly scream romance. "This is where we're eating?" she asked, trying not to sound ungrateful. Daniel smiled shyly. "Yeah, it's not fancy, but it's my favorite place." He held the door open, and a warm wave of nostalgia hit her. The smell of bacon, old coffee, and rain-soaked jackets. Inside, a handful of locals sat at the counter, chatting with a grey-haired waitress who moved like she'd been there for decades. Emma tried to adjust her expectations. Maybe it wasn't about where they were. Maybe it was about who she was with. They slid into a red vinyl booth, and Daniel ordered 2 grilled cheese sandwiches and hot chocolate. "You come here often?" she asked, stirring her drink. "Every Friday night," he said. "I grew up a few blocks away. My mom worked double shifts, so we'd come here after her late shift. The owner, Charlie, would always slip me an extra cookie. He said kindness doesn't cost a dime." Emma smiled. It was a nice story, but she still wondered why he hadn't taken her somewhere. Well, nicer. Then out of nowhere, Daniel stood up and walked toward the kitchen. He disappeared behind the counter for a moment. Curious, Emma turned and froze. Daniel was hugging an elderly man in a faded apron. The man looked frail, his hands trembling slightly. When Daniel returned, his eyes were damp. "That's Charlie," he said quietly. "He had a stroke last month. The diner's barely hanging on. I've been trying to help out however I can." He pulled out an envelope and slipped it under the register. Emma caught a glimpse. It was full of cash. "The least I can do is give something back," he said softly. "He never treated us like charity. He treated us like family." Emma stared at him, her earlier disappointment melting away. The clatter of dishes, the soft hum of an old jukebox, and the smell of warm butter filled the silence between them. For the first time that night she really saw him, not just the shy guy she'd met on a dating app, but a man who understood gratitude in a way most people forgot. Charlie shuffled over with a slow grin, his hand trembling slightly as he placed their plates down. "You brought company, Danny boy," he said, his voice rough but kind. "That's a first." Daniel laughed. "Yeah, I figured it was time to show someone where all the best grilled cheese sandwiches in town come from." Charlie winked at Emma. "If he brought you here, sweetheart, you must be special." Her cheeks flushed. "I think he's the special one," she said quietly. As the night went on, they talked for hours, not about jobs or hobbies or favorite movies, but about life. Daniel told her how he used to do his homework at the corner booth, how Charlie would save leftovers for local kids, and how the diner had once been the heart of the neighborhood before newer, shinier restaurants took over. At some point, Emma realized they weren't just 2 people on a date anymore. They were sharing something real, a story about kindness, humility, and remembering where you came from. When they finally stood to leave, Daniel reached into his pocket again. "I almost forgot," he said. "I set up a fundraiser for Charlie online. People don't know how much this place means to everyone. Tonight's the night I show him." He pulled out his phone, opened the page, and turned the screen toward Charlie. The old man squinted. Then his eyes widened. Over $42,000 had been raised. His lips trembled. "Danny, you did this?" Daniel shook his head. "We did this. The people you've fed, the lives you've touched, they remember." Charlie covered his face with his hands. The waitress cried quietly behind the counter. Even a few customers clapped. Emma felt her eyes sting. Outside, the rain had stopped. The pavement still shimmered under the streetlights, and for the first time, the flickering diner sign looked beautiful, like a heartbeat still fighting to stay alive. Daniel turned to her, unsure what she was thinking. "Sorry again, it wasn't fancy," he said. Emma reached for his hand. "It was perfect," she whispered. "You just showed me what real class looks like." He laughed nervously, and they walked down the quiet street together, two silhouettes under a single umbrella, leaving behind the glow of the little diner that had reminded everyone what kindness could do.